Mobile hunters, the king of comfort has arrived. Go to tetherednation.com and check out the new Lockdown saddle. Over the past 2 years, Tethered has tested and refined a new approach to their saddle lineup. The Lockdown saddle takes the best-in-class features from the Phantom, like the UtiliBridge, comfort channels, and included an expandable saddle body with their Lockdown link construction to take saddle hunting to the next level of comfort. As if this wasn't enough, they developed Lockdown haulers, which has a slightly rigid internal frame structure, so you can easily unzip, zip, and access haulers with one hand. And if you're a guy like me with no junk in your trunk and have issues with your saddle staying put while you're walking in to hunt, the Lockdown modular yoke solves this problem. Whether you're new to saddle hunting or an old tree climbing veteran, go to tetherednation.com for all your saddle hunting gear. Welcome to the Truth from a Stand Deer Hunting Podcast. I'm your host, Clint Campbell, and you're listening to episode number 344. Today, I'm joined by my buddy, Greg Litzinger, for our annual summer listener Q&A session, so stay tuned. All right. What is up, everyone? Happy Wednesday to you. Hope you are doing well. Hope you are feeling fine. I am fresh back from family vacation, feeling recharged, rejuvenated. Nothing too crazy. We just went and had a kind of a chill, relaxing time away from the normal everyday grind. Didn't do anything too crazy. Got a couple of jiu-jitsu sessions in. Found a gym in the area that we were vacationing, and dropped in and had 2 training sessions there. Spent some time in the sauna, hit the gym a couple times, some pool time, did a little horseback riding, had a run in with a rattlesnake while we were horseback riding. So that was kind of like the adrenaline excitement for the trip. A little bit of zip lining, a little bit of go-kart riding, ice cream, and so now we were back to the usual grind. Off the vacation diet, if you will. It's always kind of fun for the first couple of days, and then you realize that the vacation diet doesn't make you feel so great. so I'm back to kind of like the straight and narrow path, trying to get things back in order. But with that, the 4th of July holiday is behind us, which now means we fully focus our attention on the upcoming fall, because it will be here before we know it. Especially if you have those early openers, out in some of the western states. And certainly if you're headed out west to do any kind of elk hunting or things of that nature, your season is fast approaching. But with that, I have 2 things that I want to pass along to you guys before we jump into today's show. One, if you haven't heard, Tethered launched their Lockdown saddle. If you haven't had a chance to check that thing out, I had a chance to put my eyes on it, my hands on it at an outdoor show earlier in the spring. And actually have one here at the house I've been kind of playing with, and been hanging out in a tree in my backyard, doing some shooting, things of that nature. And if you're a guy who either one has been saddle hunting and is looking to upgrade, this is a killer saddle. I would definitely check this one out. If you're someone who listens to this show, is into mobile hunting, but maybe saddle hunting was something that you were on the fence about because you were concerned with comfort or things of that nature, they kind of solved all those concerns with this particular saddle. So head over to tetherednation.com and check out the Lockdown saddle. You won't be disappointed. Also, if you haven't done so and you're looking for a lightweight killer mobile pack, whether it's for saddle hunting or if you're tree stand hunting, you just hunt mobile, the Tethered Fast Pack is the pack you're probably going to want to pick up. It's a little pricey, but it's bomb proof. You'll have it this thing will probably be around whenever you're done hunting, to be quite honest with you. I've been using it to scout scout and hang trail cameras the past, several weeks. And it's awesome. It's kind of small in size. It's a small profile. But the way they kind of constructed it, there's nothing. I've actually put all my hunting gear in it, from everything that I would use for early season to late season, camera recording gear, camera arm, like all those things. Even though it's a much smaller pack and profile than the one that I've used previously, it fits all my gear actually better than the previous pack did, surprisingly. So go ahead to tetherednation.com and check that out as well. Also, if you are looking for some new glass, I've been using Maven optics for years. Historically, I've used the 10 by 42s, and they've served me really well. I recently got some B3s, which are just a smaller set of glass for more for like timber hunting, for whitetails. I don't quite need the 10x42s for around here, but do like them whenever I'm out west or in Kansas. They recently just launched the B7s, which is essentially very, very similar to the B3s, only they're even more compact. They actually will fold down almost, I don't want to say half, but like almost half its size. But you're still getting the same killer glass that you would get in like a B3. I think they come in slightly different sizing options as the B3s. But regardless, the Maven glass is just killer. For the money, you can't beat it. You won't find a better glass at the price point that Maven has. So head over to Maven's website and check that out as well. You want to check out the B7s if you're in the market for a good kind of budget-friendly set of glass for whitetail hunting. That's big on quality, but a little bit more price conscious for my fellow Eastern whitetail hunters. So with that, we're going to go ahead and just jump into today's show. I have a cool show for you guys today. This is the part 2 from the session from last week that I released with Greg and I. Greg came over to the house. We did a session together. You heard the first part of that last week. The second part is we, dive in like we always like to during the course of the summers. We take a handful of listener questions and try to address them for anyone who has things that are on their mind as they're getting ready to launch into this upcoming season. So that's exactly what we do on this session. If you've listened to this show for any length of time, you kind of get the drill. We'll kind of pipe off the question, and then Greg and I will take a stab at doing our best to answer that question. So with that, we'll go ahead and jump into today's show. And as always, thank you all for listening. Well, cool, man. I think at this point, dude, the whole reason we were getting together was we were going to do some question and answer shiz. If you're down with it,
let's do it.
We'll see what some folks had to write in. So thanks everyone who wrote in, and always appreciate you guys writing in some thoughtful stuff so we can have a little fun, get you some questions answered before the season kicks off. And that's kind of how I prefaced it, as we're getting ready to prep for the season. Things you might be thinking about, have questions about, want us to dive into, and this is what you guys came up with. So we'll just kind of dive right into it. So this first one is, question would be, what are we focusing on during early season, September to that pre-rut transition? And how are we using summer intel to formulate that game plan?
Food, bedding, food. I know there's a lot of talk on mock scrapes this time of year. It seems to be a hot thing right now. So mock scrapes so hot right now.
Remember whenever no one was like that was you never heard of never heard of that.
And I think if you can just locate the food, and if you can glass from a even if you gotta get in the woods, sit in a stand and glass some food, that would be my personal thing. Mm-hmm. Scrapes in the summer, I don't get much action on bigger deer. I find them in the beans, but maybe it's because of the pressure. New Jersey's a different state, Delaware, same thing. It's just roadside blasting. There's a deer, and you look at a map, and you try to start just pinpointing it. Taking a stab at it, so to speak. Not contaminating the ground that you plan on hunting. Yeah.
I mean, for me, it's funny that you mentioned the scrape thing, because, it's like I love summer scrapes, community scrapes, because they're great for getting inventory. Like, especially if you have one that is getting used all year round. At some point during the summer, the big deer that hang out in the area are going to stop by. They're like every other deer. They're going to communicate at some point. They're just probably not going to be there super consistent during the summer. But you don't want to hunt those like you would hunt around community scrape areas like you would in middle to late October. Like, it's just not the same value proposition for the deer. They don't have to necessarily go there. What I did start paying attention to it for, and that I would use, because, that big piece for me, and I'll just kind of use that as a reference, because I think I'm going to spend a lot of my time there this fall, as much as I can, because I didn't have anything local last year. Returns thus far haven't been good, at least on the cameras that I've had out, or the cell cameras I've been kind of monitoring just to see what's around to this point. Maybe I'll have one or two decent ones show up. That'd be cool. But what I do like to use them for, especially up there, is if I can get one that's kind of like breaking that like right around daylight still kind of time frame in the morning and stuff like that, it gives me a real good idea of like where he's bedding not far away, and so then for me, it becomes food because there's no destination food sources there.
Yes.
Usually where they're bedding up there, they're kind of jumping what seems to me, and I talked to Steve Shirk about this a little bit, and I talked to my buddy Mike who lives up around that area. It almost seems like these deer are moving from like place of abundance to place of abundance, and that's where they're kind of living. So if you find the place of abundance, it's the same thing. It's like you're working on food, but like in this scenario, the food is also where they're bedding.
Yeah.
And if there's a scrape that's outside there and you can kind of see one come through like during that earlier part of the season, and it's at the right time, and you know where the place of abundance is because that scrape's probably close to it. That means he's probably bedded not far off from that spot.
Yes.
Like I would say he's probably not bedding much further than maybe the fringes of that spot in circumference, like around it. You know what I mean?
Agreed.
And so that's kind of how I use it. And it's something I just look, like I said earlier, I'm a little bit dense sometimes. I didn't think of this until literally like the past 2 weeks. You know what I mean? Yeah. It was literally, because I had been mulling it over. I did the episode that I did with Steve Shirk, and he and I talked about it a little bit. And, it was once he and I talked, it like affirmed what I was thinking. And I spent some time with Mike. He kind of was affirming what I was thinking. So I'm like,
and that's very like terrain specific, woods type specific, big wood settings, I guess.
Yeah.
It's definitely different in farm country.
Yeah. Yeah. Your area, it's like I would give two shits about what was happening at a scrape.
Yeah.
I wouldn't. The only thing I would care would just be inventory, and that would be it.
Because like I said, you got the beans, and they plant them at different rates. Sometimes they plant them early, and sometimes by September, his beans are starting to yellow, so they're gone.
Yeah.
So you can glass a bean field all summer long. Like, hey, you get a dry spell, and those beans just start crawling up, and you're like, wow, that's a waste. Where's he going to go?
Right.
Next food source. Usually, you might have some oaks, or corn or something. So you got to be able to just, for me, find the food.
Right.
And like I said, the place of abundance where the food is, where they want to eat, that's where they're going to be.
Yeah. And, and it was interesting. I can't take coining that phrase because that was something Steve kind of said to me was like these places of abundance. And and what he really meant by that is it's like, not only does it provide like cover, but it's cover, it's the right terrain. They have food there. It's like they have bedding there. It's like everything that they need is in this little pocket. And that's a very, like you said, it's a very big woods type of thing because it's not like it's 100,000 acres of like.
I find that in the similar sections in the pines would be like that.
I was going to say, because a lot of it would be barren beyond that, right? Yeah, for sure.
Pines, believe it or not, they'll do a lot of walking in the pines. I mean, they'll travel a lot to get food and cover.
Right.
Because some of the pines, it's open pines. It's not a lot of security cover.
Right.
But the bedding's here, but the food isn't, because it's pines. It's really not. They'll browse and whatnot, but like the main food source might be 500-600 yards away. So these deer are commuting.
Right.
They have a long commute daily to get to and from food and security. Like, because sometimes the food, there's not a lot of security there. So they got to go where they feel safe to bed. So
yeah. The other thing I'm considering doing is again,
tap dance.
Well, yeah, I mean, always that. Yeah. It's like I'm big into tap. Yeah. If I strike you as a guy who likes to tap, dude, I got two left feet, dude. We were trying to do this judo throw at jiu-jitsu like 2 weeks ago, and it's like almost like a dance move where you got to cross your feet. Dude, I was so bad at it. I was like, this is exactly why I don't dance. Anyway, not tap dancing. Yeah. So there's this last spot that I was in with my buddy up there when we were scouting like 2 weekends ago or whatever it was, 3 weekends ago. There's these little ridge systems that are in this particular area and there's these like two, relatively big, like in this case, there's like a swamp or whatever, but it could just as easily be like a clear cut or whatever that's hidden, to a degree. Right. And it was interesting because the way these things set up was like this small little ridge actually gave you a glassing vantage point down into that swamp. Right. Or if you're somewhere that you have a cut, you can, you you can see down into a cut. And so the one thing that we've talked about doing is actually headed up there in sometime in August, because that is a place of abundance. You know what I mean? It's like anywhere you're finding diversity is going to be that abundance, right? So it's like, where's diversity usually live? Well, usually around water. Why? Because you have wet meeting dry that then ventures into like whatever is beyond that, right? And so they got everything they want there. And so it was like, let's sit here and just glass this. And because I was like, I wouldn't doubt if like a couple big deer just walk out in the middle of that swamp. Because I mean, you need, in certain portions, you would need like
hip boots,
hips or chests, you know what I mean, to get into certain spots. But on the fringes of it, you know what I mean? Like, no, it's just a lot of food, you know? And so was thinking of doing that because that would be a good way too. So even if you're hunting in an area that doesn't have
some
food
of the
plots,
spots are cooler.
100%, yeah.
I find that in the swamps, you know, you think there'd be littered with mosquitoes. It's actually the coolest. Some of the sections of swamps, it's actually a couple of degrees cooler.
Yeah.
And if you're growing, you know, a bigger deer, you're growing antlers, and the mosquitoes aren't as bad as they are up high, which is weird because you look at it, yeah, it's a swamp, but it's not warm. You know, there's definitely a slight breeze in there. It's like I find a lot of bedding, you know, in the summertime, you know, up along that edge where like they're not bedding here, but you get in down, it's like almost being in a cornfield. There's not a lot of bugs in the cornfield.
Right.
If anybody's ever walked through a cornfield and all this, it's like, there's not a lot of mosquitoes. That's why deer like hanging out in the corn.
Right. Yeah. I'm going to start hanging out in the corn in the summer. I'm going to plant my whole backyard in corn.
There you go.
You know, get rid of the mosquitoes. All right. So I think we covered that pretty well. Let's move on to the next one. And this one is, I'd be curious about how many sits y'all give an area early season before October 15th through the 20th. So right before pre-rut kind of, or the lull, the quote unquote lull. Seems like mostly bed hunting then. So are we bouncing around bedding depending on food sources?
Yes.
Like hunting near a bed near an oak flat, or just one and done and then on to the next one, giving it a couple of days before moving in to the next spot?
I do, like I said, my approach in the early season is to be in one area. I'll take through, like, first week of season's usually the best time to kill deer.
Yeah.
So if I got 3 days, I'm just going to just quadrant hunt my way in until I find that sign. I know they're in there, especially if I've seen them, you know, September 1, you know, I'm going to quadrant hunt that for 3 days. And I'm going to keep scouting until I find that sign. And without the food, you know, especially if I don't see them, I'll walk the perimeter, the edge, say there's beans or corn or somewhere, or oak flat, look for tracks. If I cut a big track, then I'm going in.
Right.
And I'm going to try and decipher where they're going and could be going.
So you'll spend, like to answer his first part of his question is like, you're spending a couple days in an area, maybe not on one bed per se, but you're going to spend it in a
first 3
area.
days, because his guard's down. You can make mistakes. He's going to make a few mistakes, and you got a chance to. They usually won't bump very far because it could be a hiker. It could be, you know, they haven't had much pressure throughout the summer, so I'll get a little aggressive in September. Yeah. Even Todd was like, "Did you really get in there?" I'm like, "I ain't coming back." So it's like,
who cares?
I'm going down swinging.
Yeah. Well, I think there's a lot to be said for that too, because, you know, there was one deer 2, maybe 3 seasons ago. I don't know if you remember or not, but it was like, you remember I glassed that big one in a bean field. The bean field wasn't adjacent to public. It was like, it might have been maybe like a mile away, but all the land in between that and the public and surrounding it was all developed. So the only place the deer could really bed was like, there was this one strip of small timber that was on like this piece of private that was big enough to like, for like a doe family or two to maybe bed in. But I was like, the next best bedding was actually on the public in like the very far like corner of the public. And if I were thinking, I was like, that would probably be the best first bedding for bucks to bed in, because they want to get away from the does and the fawns and stuff like that. And so similar to what you did, where it's like, I kind of knew that deer was in the area. I didn't know exactly where, but our season, I think that year opened up like September 15th. And so I was like, around here, they peel velvet around like the 10th, 11th, between like the 9th and the 11th.
Yeah.
And you usually got maybe 4 or 5 days before they split and they go to wherever they're going to go for fall. Right. And because it's local and the pieces are smaller, I knew like once he transitioned, like the chance of like him being around in October were very slim, and he was a big deer and I'm sure a lot of people saw him and whatever. I was like, I probably got like 1, maybe 2 cracks at him. And so the first day I was like, I think I might know where he's bedded. So I went in like to where I thought he was bedded. And sure enough, he was there with all 3 deer and I walked right up on him and I thought they would have been bedded a little further. Yeah. They were about 70 yards further in than I had anticipated them being. And I blew them out of bed, but that's kind of like in the early part of the year. It's like, depending, especially if this fellow's hunting smaller tracks of public, you have an early opener, dude, go in and like whip it out, bro. You know what I mean? Just shake it around, like make it weird, Why? Because chances of that deer sticking around and being around in general in another 2 weeks anyway probably aren't good. And then you basically get a clean reset once the shift occurs in that area, most likely.
Agreed.
And so I agree with you, man. Like just in that instance, I would just go whole hog. Literally whole hog. Not to make it a little bit even weirder, All right, this next one. If someone was just getting into bow hunting, what is your early season tactic besides food?
Food.
Yeah. Just food.
Without the food, you're not going to have the deer early season because they have to pack on serious weight, mass, etc. to survive. So it'll be a hard sell not to have food. And I talked to Jake Bush about this when they came down to the video on me. All the years I was hunting beds, it was not a food guy. Yeah. And it's like, looking back now, it's like, I was hunting food without knowingly I was hunting food, but basically all the bedding was based off of food. Right.
Because at that time of year, those beds aren't going to be far away from where food is.
No.
You know what I mean? Like that's why they chose it.
It's like, I'm a little dense too.
Yeah, there you go. You've been hunting beds longer than me though. So it's like, I mean, the thing is, I think with early season is that, like Greg said, any activity you have is going to be around food. If I had to say like,
no, you could be hunting, if you have private and there's no food, then you got to find where they're leaving your private to go get the food. So you can just hunt trails.
Or if the food is on public and they're betting on you, then you got to figure out like what the ambush point is in and around.
Where you can get in and out without leaving your ground zone. Focus on getting in and out undetected.
I was just going to say so the one thing I was going to say is like, I would go back to the thing that we just said about being aggressive. Like if we just said like, okay, we're just going to dismiss food and just assume that it's there. What would I do? I think at that point, then it is focus on access, and so you can be as aggressive as possible.
Yeah. Because if you can't get it in and out undetected, it's over before it started.
Yeah.
Especially if you're targeting Jersey, you got to shoot a doe before you shoot a buck. So it's like, you can't go super aggressive in New Jersey to shoot a doe.
Right.
So it's kind of tricky.
Right.
But like if you can shoot a buck right off the bat, if he catches your ground scent, it's over.
Yeah.
You never stood a chance.
Yeah. And so you're burning your whole season, or at least with that deer,
yeah.
Potentially, you know what I mean? And now I've seen deer play stupid in other places where they just don't.
Yeah. Depending on the state too. Like if you, a non-pressure state or.
For sure.
Or you got a couple thousand acres of unpressured private. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The have and have nots.
Yeah.
I'm a have not, so
yeah. I'm dealing with all the same stuff too. I was gonna add something, but I don't think it really adds anything, so I think we'll just skip it. There was no, there wasn't anything good there.
Making it weird.
It was tap dancing.
Yeah.
The next one. Does the special guest, does he do jujitsu? And if not, why not?
Oh, anthracite. Yeah.
That's old anthracite antler addicts. My brother in jiu-jitsu arms.
Yeah. Too many injuries.
Yeah. Now we've talked about this because you used to do martial arts.
Yeah.
When you were just a young Greg.
Yeah. Wee lad. 2nd grade to 10th grade.
Yeah.
Then I got into MMA in I guess, early 20s for a while, and then knee surgeries, and he's just, the risk reward ratio is just not there. Yeah. I plan on getting my daughter.
You and I talked about that. Yeah.
It's something either judo or jiu-jitsu or some type of maybe wrestling, boxing, something. She's going to have to do something whether she likes it or not.
Right. Some ass kicking sport.
If it ends up being taekwondo, so be it.
Right.
She will at least have some basic fighting skills.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So that's the story why he doesn't. You and I have talked about that
as much as I want to. It's
dude,
like,
we've had whole conversations on the phone where it's like legit, like 5 minutes of deer talk, and then we jump right into like talking like jiu-jitsu and judo. Because you do like it.
Yeah, I love it. But it's like the body's like, the fuck you do.
I got a little something to say about that, you know. I don't think you do.
Yeah.
No.
You sure about that?
I really do. You sure about that? What's that meme from? What did I just see that from the other day?
He's all over the place. You sure about that?
I saw it was on the best post too. Like as soon as I saw it, I was like, dude, that's great. I actually think I sent it to somebody.
You love jiu-jitsu? Your knees? Are you sure about that?
Are you sure about that? Yeah, it's in like a leg lock class. Your knees love jiu-jitsu in a leg lock class. Yeah. You sure about that? Yeah. Oh, yeah. My foot and ankle are sore from a leg lock. Wasn't a leg lock class, but we were going over a bunch of different ankle locks and heel hooks last night. All right. So this next one. Oh, the bow hunting fiend wrote in. He said, secret sauce.
Yes.
Or secret sauce. He said secret guest sounds spicy. Just got that like mid-90s smooth R&B DJ voice on.
And it's weird.
And it's weird again. All right, gear breakdown detail. He's like, gear breakdown detail episode would be fire, but we can show him some love and just do a little bit of gear breakdown now on what our kit consists of, essentially.
You want to go with me?
Geez, man, I don't even. Yeah, I can go. You need some time. You need to think about it for a minute.
No, you got talk about you got some new toys.
Oh, I did get some new toys. Yeah, I mean, I've been tinkering. I mean, a lot of my kits stay, like the general kit, if you will, stays predominantly the same. I'll teeter back and forth between using like a Predator platform or a ring of steps. It really just kind of depends. Like for a while, I was using the ring of steps a lot. For whatever reason, last year, partway through the year, I went back to using a platform. Like it
filming.
100% filming. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it made it easier to take a camera, and that's honestly what it was, And so this year, I'll probably just continue to use the Predator platform this year because I do plan to carry a camera.
2 ring steps on the side of it.
There's just more stuff to set up, man.
It's 2 steps, Clint.
Yeah.
And OC baits.
Yeah.
Settle down.
Yeah, it's too much for me. You heard how dense I was, right? Like this is going to be a lot for this guy.
I can't do it.
Yeah, this is going to be a lot for this guy to deal with in a tree. So that's so I'll continue to use that. I'm going to shoot the same bows I shot last year, the Hoyt RX7. Love that bow. Same arrows, the Exodus MMT arrows, which are killer. If you don't know, I think we were talking about it earlier, but they got some new 204s that you should be checking out if you're into smaller diameter arrows. Check those out. But I did get a new pack this year because I've been struggling. It's like the one piece of my kit has been like the thing that I've tried to change every year.
Your packs
pack whore. But I ultimately ended up going back to the same pack every year because I just couldn't I just couldn't find one that worked. You know what I mean? And this year, our buddies at Tethered came out with the fast pack, and it's awesome. Like it works great for scouting. Like I've used it. I used it a ton for that. It's filled all the needs in that regard. I've actually already put like all my hunting kit in it to see how like I would pack it because it is small. Like, look, I'm not gonna lie, and it's pricey, but it's bomb proof. It's one of those things that you'll have for 10 years and it'll still work. It's not gonna fall apart. It's not gonna rip. And Greg and those guys, even when they made the videos about it, like they said, like, look, cost you a couple ducks. You know what I mean? But
quack, quack,
quack, quack. But it's going to last you a long time. It also isn't like, like some of the like Burberry kind of fleecy material packs that you've seen that are like super quiet because it is made bomb proof. You know what I mean? Like it will, it's meant to last. So it's got a little noise factor to it, but it's not overbearing. Like I've walked through the timber with it and it's.
Listen, unless I've had packs with the fleece stuff and not fleece stuff, and the packs that hold up the best are not fleece.
Yeah, 100%. So if
you want
want
to spend $200 or $100, the $200 pack's going to last you
10 years, probably,
and it'll get soft eventually.
Yeah, exactly. And so I started using that, and I actually put all my hunting gear in because I wanted to see how I would configure everything, because it is on the smaller side, but the way they kind of build everything with like the bowling ball pouches and stuff like that expand. Like, I got all my hunting kit in it that I would take with me when I hunt, and I packed it like I was packing for a Kansas all day hunt where I'm going to be out, so I need to have like an extra like jacket because the wind might kick up or whatever, and I was able to fit everything in it. So that was like the big piece that I changed this year. So it's like, if you've been looking for a pack, like I would certainly give that one a look. I did get the new saddle, that is launching, or at least I've got to play with it, I should say, the Lockdown. So I'll likely be using that. I still love the Phantom saddle, but the Lockdown is comfortable with the panel and stuff like that. So, I'll likely be making the move to that. Same sticks as I've been using, as one stick in with the tethered one sticks. That's not changing at all. I'm trying to think. I did get a couple of new pieces of gear from Sitka recently. It was more so I wanted to build out a kit that was kind of meant for hunting Kansas or hunting plain states. I wanted things that were like solid colors and stuff like that. So I just was blending in more with like the surroundings, because camo typically, whatever camo you're using is usually at this point made for you to be in a tree by and large. You know what I mean? It's made for you, whether it's Sitka or First Light's camo pattern or Osseo's camo pattern or whatever it is, it's meant for you to blend in when you're in a tree, right? So it's like, I know Sitka's is more like when you're looking at the sky, because it has like the colors of like white and stuff in it. So they lose you in the sky. With Osseo, I know it's like blending in with like the tree bark and stuff like that. Like it's the owl approach. Yep. First Light, I don't know a lot about their technology, just going to be honest, like as far as like the rationale behind their camo pattern. So for me going to Kansas, it was like, and I don't know if this is even true. You could kill deer on the ground in Kansas in like a red flannel shirt and blue jeans. So I'm not saying that you can't, but it was just, I always felt like I stuck out, if I didn't have a ghillie jacket on. And I don't really necessarily want to always wear the ghillie jacket, because there's enough ways for me to break up my silhouette out there with enough like grass and stuff that's around that I don't necessarily need to wear the full on ghillie all the time.
Well, adrenaline guys, they don't wear ghillies.
Exactly. Yeah. And so, but if you notice what they wear is all predominantly solid colors and different hues. You know what I mean?
A little spray paint action here.
A little spray paint on a Fruit of the Looms like thermal shirt. Yeah. You know what I mean? And so I ended up getting like, a Jetstream jacket, mountain pants, and another pair of like pants that are all like solid colors. So I built like a Western or like a plains kit that I can use that'll work in those states. And then beyond that, the only other thing that I'm really tinkering with is my broadheads, and so I started flinging, started testing like a Tooth of the Arrow broadhead. I've never talked to those guys. I don't know them. I've just heard good things about it yet. Because I wanted a broadhead that I could resharpen, and wanted something that flew really well, comparatively speaking, with my field points. I wanted something that would penetrate really, really well, And it was actually one of the arrows that Chad and those guys used when they were testing, or I'm not arrows, one of the broadheads that Chad and those guys used when they were doing the broadhead test, whatever it was last year, I think it was. And it had the best penetration, And so I picked up a set of those, and I've been shooting, one of those as like a target head, to see how it flies. And it's flying really well. So I think that that's the one piece of kit that I'm going to change with my bow setup, is changing that broadhead. It's just the inch diameter one. I went with a smaller profile one. If you put it where it's supposed to be, it doesn't need to be that big, and I want more of the exit than I want like large cut, so.
Especially if you, Kansas, your drag, bigger broadheads, windy. There's a lot of things to take into consideration.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. And I did think of that, because the first day I was actually shooting, when I got them and I went outside to shoot one, it was, It was right before all that, like, I don't know if you got it in Jersey, but we got like a bunch of wind and like these storms kind of all rolled through. And it was right on the front of that. So like the wind was ripping like pretty good.
I was shooting in the wind right before Michigan Tack because we don't get much, especially when you've been to my yard. Not a lot of crosswinds. And I had a nice, wicked wind coming in. I'm like, I got to shoot my bow. And I was like at 60 yards. I was having like 10 inches of drift plus, you know, when you're like shooting, you just watch the arrow just like fall in. And that's just what a field point. So you put a big old broadhead on there that could really mess your flight up a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, I think that's it for like gear. And so that's not like new gear. The only new things are really the broadhead. I've wore Sitka for forever, and that's but it's a couple new articles from that fast pack and rock the lockdown saddle will be like the new pieces for this year. But yeah, that's my kit. What about you, man? What do you going to do this year?
Method 2 saddle, Latitude. I got both their platforms, but I'm a platform and 2 ring steps because it's way cooler.
Taking that extra time, dude. Yeah. That's when that deer's going to sneak in on you, dude, when you're trying to buck with an OCB, son.
Yeah. Same old ass bows I got, an old New Breed and old bow tech Carbon Icon. I didn't realize how cheap I was till I go what people spend on sites now and stuff.
It's crazy,
I'm like, how much is that again? I'm good, thanks.
Yeah.
True Glow for me.
Bam. Yeah, whatever it was, like several years ago, I bought that HHA site, and the only reason I bought it was because, which is the only reason, but like I had a handful of friends that used it and like literally beat the tar out of it for years. And he had the same sight.
Yep.
He literally dropped it out of a tree one day hunting. His bow got jacked up. He had to take his bow to the shop. Sight dead nuts. You know what I mean? And so I was just like, that thing's a tank.
Yep.
And I don't have a need to change sights until that one's broken, and I don't ever see how it's going to break. But
and probably pick up Exodus 204s.
Okay. Yeah. Nice.
Sweet. Picking up 204s.
Yeah. Okay. You were busting my balls about that earlier. Man. I'm going to stick with the ones I got.
Said I get the Ozio camo, and he sent me some of the mossy oak because I'm going to hunt the ground a little bit in the salt marsh this year.
Nice.
After work, I got a couple spots I can dip in after work because I'm sure the kids will be playing some sports where I won't have a Saturday. Probably most of October. So I told the old lady, I was like, I'm hunting after work. I'm going to put that out there right now. Hunt after work.
You sure?
Yeah, you sure about that?
You sure about that?
And that's basically it. Same shitty ass super day pack I've had. I did pick up an Elevation. I don't know if it was Try once. It's a smaller profile for early season.
Okay.
It holds everything nice. Good enough,
Yeah.
But I don't really.
Remind me before you leave. I got a pack downstairs. If you dig it, you can take it with you and check it out and see if you like it or not.
And but yeah, not much. Same release, same basic arrows. Outside of the 204s, I shoot Radical Archery Design heads, 4 blades, so 1 inch, and they got a big 1 3/16, and they have a titanium 3 blade, which is indestructible. I'm sure a lot of things with that, and it's like brand new.
Yeah.
You spend money on a good head, but it lasts forever, and it's like to change out the blades. I'm like, cool.
Yeah. The only other broadhead I was considering kind of checking out that I've been thinking about recently is the Grizzly Stick broadheads, because I've heard really good things about those.
They're big cut.
Yeah.
If your bow's
single bevel, I think.
Yeah, if your bow's not tuned, it's a big with two blades. It's 1.5 inches. It's a pretty big slice.
Yeah,
which is nice.
Yeah, it's it'll do some damage for sure. But
if you get any speed out of your bow, you might run into problems with that thing. It's a lot to steer. Actually, I do, Zinger Fletchers, fletching. They 3D print. They slide over your arrows like no gluing. I shot them, shooting the crap out of them, and pretty dope. Nice. So they're cool.
Zinger, it's just like your last name, dude.
Singer with the zinger.
Yeah, dude.
But I was kind of skeptical. I seen like Adam with them last year. I was like, this fucking things.
Kids in your
contraptions, and then they gave me a pack at that Harrisburg show, and it's like, and my one bow was tuned for broadheads, so I was like, cut off the fletchings, put it on, and was like,
Lasers.
That's just the first one. So it's like, did it again. I was like, cut off another one. I was like, just stack it in there. And I'm like, yeah.
What's the difference? Like, how are they different?
They just slide over the arrow. They 3D print them, and then you just slide them over the arrow. You put like a wrap on, you put them in it, they don't move.
How do you adhere it?
It just sits like, it's like a compression fit, kind of like stretchy a little bit.
Like Chinese finger trap.
Yeah, basically you put a little alcohol or something on the back of the arrow, stretch them out, put them on there, on and don't move.
Wow.
I shot them all attack, and I shot through a tree. The fletching stayed. The arrow went through a tree. The arrow's still good, but the fletching back on the tree. The arrow was like good to go.
Dude, you could do arrow work in the woods with those.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like
Annette was there, and I made a dozen arrows to take. I took 10 zingers, and I took 8 regular ones. And I scraped them off, and to do 10 arrows with kids, even with 2 jigs, it takes a while.
Right. Yeah.
And I was literally done in like 15 minutes. And I'm like,
yeah.
That's kind of nice.
Yeah, that's kind of nice. Not going to lie.
Yeah, I was like, I kind of like that, especially.
Well, especially if they fly well.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, then there's no reason to not like them. You know?
And that's about it.
Nice. So I think we covered our gear situation well enough. There's nothing really new for the trailer this year that I missed that I'm thinking of. You know what I did think of getting? Only because this is in preparation of like the Iowa trip, not this year, but next. Is I actually thought about getting roaming Starlink, like internet for the trailer. It's pricey, but what's that?
Because you can work.
Yeah, because I can work from it. Because when I draw Iowa, not for this season, but the following, I'm just gonna, and I'll talk a lot about this, but I'm actually just gonna go out there and live out of my unit for like beginning of the season until I fill a tag. Essentially, just live out there and work for.
You run it by your wife yet?
I did. She's okay with it. You sure about that? She said she was. We'll see if that lasts or not. All right. This next question. Big Woods, PA, early season, warm weather. What are you targeting outside of acorns to find bucks?
Clear cuts. Edges of clear cuts.
I'm going with places of abundance for 500, Alex.
Yeah.
I'm steering clear of the cuts a little bit, only because they get a lot of attention.
Early season, they get no attention.
No?
The little I've hunted in PA in the opening week, most people
okay, opening week, yeah. I would agree with that.
Yeah.
Warm weather. So where I was actually going to go with this was
tap dance.
Tap dance. Where I was actually going to go with this is the drainages that I know in like the steeper areas that are actually holding water that are still running, because it usually is a little bit cooler, like in and around those drainages, especially and they're oftentimes hemlock lined, and so if you can get like that sweetness of water, hemlock, shade, dark timber. 5 degree plus like temperature difference in there, and there's a place where they can get hidden in there. Like that's probably what I would probably look for. In addition to cuts, but that's just one of the things that I've started kind of paying attention to, only because I've started finding setups like that. One of them specifically is in a pinch between, you'll love this, a big swamp and a big cut.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And there's like a drainage that's there. And it's like, you could see how they're running that, and I'll describe it to you more off air here, because I don't want to give much away, but there's a couple things that make it even sweeter, So that's where we would be for Big Woods, PA early season. Next question. Too much effort to say question. Set cams and tighten the spread to close on a buck or let them soak.
Say that again.
So set cams and tighten the spread to close in on a buck. So like you're going to move him and kind of like shrink down his area, or you letting those suckers soak?
I'm more of a soaker.
I'm the same.
Because I don't really hunt the same area consecutively a lot. Like historically speaking, I'm hunting over here, And once I'm out of there, it's not like, oh, I got to go move my cameras.
Yeah.
I'm not that guy. There's guys.
You ain't that guy.
You're not that guy, pal. But I know people that tactic does work for them.
Yeah.
I mean, look at Prophet, what he does. He's
Yeah.
always moved his cameras, always like in it. Like for me, once hunting season starts, my cameras are where they are. I'll carry 2 in my pack. Usually with a reader and batteries. Mm-hmm. And if I'm in an area, I'm close to my camera, I'll check it. But for me, I don't want to leave my ground set in places I don't want it.
Yeah, the only time I'm a soaker too, just to kind of like, full disclosure, like that's my game. But I also have a lot of cameras at my disposal. Yeah. So I set cameras this time of year. I'm setting them for October and November and stuff like that. So it's not like...
So batteries are dead come October.
I set them all with solar panels now. So gotcha. You sure about that? I did start setting them all with solar panels now, especially ones that I knew that I wouldn't get back to for sure, or that if I do, it's because I'm going to hunt in the general area and I don't even care what's on the camera necessarily. I might not even check it, But yeah, I did start hanging them with solar panels because of that. But so I specifically set these cameras out this time of year where it's like some of them are certainly set for like early season, like velvet inventory, shit like that. Some of them are set on, a lot of them are set on community scrapes, which will give me some inventory now, but is good, mid to late October. Some of them are set on, not a lot of them, but some of them are set on like pinches, that I know like that look like are going to funnel deer, or there's clear that there's deer traffic there, and that's more of like a rut thing that I probably won't even use for this year. It'll be more like if it pans out, then I'll know for next year, like the time frame that it really heats up in that area, and I'll know when I can hunt it. And then there's some that I just set, entirely that I just have a gut feeling. I'm like, oh, I'll hang a camera here, and I'll let it sit, and I hung it in May, and I won't pull it until next May. You know what I mean?
Ron Popeil, set it and forget it.
Yeah, I do a lot of that. You know what I mean? Where it's like I just set up a camera and,
I know, like, I like long-term data just from a historical standpoint.
I do too. And because I don't usually chase a specific buck.
Yeah.
I'm an opportunist. I'll kill whatever good buck that trips my trigger that's in that area. So I don't care about if it's this buck, or this buck. I want to know there's decent bucks in the area, but I don't need to go moving my cameras to try to follow one. Yeah. Once in a while, there'll be a deer that I get enamored with. But even then, I don't move my cameras around. I just try to know where I've seen him on camera, and then try to figure out how he's moving. See if I can get a sighting. Yeah,
because I don't like outside of the rut. I rarely 2 sets max. In the rut, I might do 3 in one area because of the ground. I think the ground scent just completely just blew out that area.
Yeah.
So it's like, why bother?
Yeah. But that's. So I think we're both soakers. We kind of use them in very similar kind of ways, because that long-term data is the jam for me, especially if we're talking about big wood stuff, because to me, in my opinion, there's not a lot you can do with data from a given year if you don't have additional year data from years past on a specific deer in the big woods, because they just have too much room to roam, And so if you're trying to kill this deer because you got a picture of him in October 16th and you're trying to kill him on October 17th through the 20th, unless you know what he was doing that week, the year prior,
it's hard.
It's going to be real hard, because he's probably, if he's on a circuit of any type, checking things,
which he is,
could be days until he's back. You know what I mean? So, all right, next question. We got a couple more here. We'll bust through. Have you ever poured hot water into a frozen scrape? And what pH is scrape dirt dead?
I have no idea what that means.
I don't either. I've never had hot water in the woods with me. So
jet boil.
But I don't carry one of those in the whitetail woods. Yeah. So no, I have not. And 2, pH. I've never measured the pH in a scrape before.
No.
I know that they're dead whenever they're stopped being opened. That's kind of how I tell whether they're dead or not. And truthfully, it's like
I paint scrapes, so Whatever my pH is, it's good.
Yeah. I open it back up.
Yeah. It's closed. You're open.
You sure about that? It's closed. You sure about that? Yeah. I mean, just if we're talking about whether a scrape is like viable or not, like that's pretty obvious. You know, like you can tell. But to me, it's like scrapes stop making sense pretty soon after, unless like you'll occasionally, if you're scouting for hot sign and you find an open scrape and it's November 3rd or 4th, well, by all means hunt it, because if it is fresh, then you know it's like super fresh, right? Because they ain't in the business of like out making a bunch of scrapes that time of year. Usually that starts to die down right after Halloween kind of type of time frame, right? And so if you find one that looks freshy fresh and you're in like the first week of November, it's like you probably want to set up on it, but you probably don't want to give it any more than a day, you know? And so that's kind of like my criteria, because I assume that they're all primarily dead for the most part, unless I see one that is visibly open, you know, and then it's a crapshoot from there. Would you agree?
Okay. I concur.
All right. Approach to find a shooter with all corn crops. My state just banned trail cameras.
Delaware.
Yeah.
Corey.
Nice.
I would. Who sent that one?
Whitetail Addict.
Okay. Corey, I think.
Yeah.
Is that Corey?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, he sent me a message about June 1st or about they banned it.
Oh, did they really? Okay.
June 1st. I was like, and then we messaged back and forth. But standing corn, cut big tracks, inside corners.
Yeah.
I know in Jersey, because we're September 10th, but they're living in the corn before September 10th.
Yeah.
I find I get bigger bucks living in the corn come like the third week of August, because they're basically hardhorn. It just hasn't fallen. The velvet hasn't fallen. They have no problem going through the corn. The pain's not there involved because their growing is done. They're slowly hardened up. So they'll slip through the corn. So I think, I target Jersey corn first week of the season a lot. And most people are beans. I was like, dude, I'm going for the corn because, well, most people aren't going for the corn.
Right.
Wait for a rainy day, walk the edge, find those big tracks. They're going to be relatively consistent, that first week or two of the season.
Yeah. Yeah. So Corey's, or we're assuming this is Corey, but he's in Delaware.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I would assume, like with that situation, like you almost want to approach it like for that. So if the corn is either up or freshly cut.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, September 1st, it's going to be up.
Right.
And it might be some,
So, but he didn't say September 1st. He's just saying in general with corn crops. But what I was going to say is like from the time that it's up until it's cut. And
they have to leave the corn. They don't live. I mean, they're not in the corn 365, 24/7.
Right.
Or 24/7. So they're going to come out of that corn somewhere and enter that corn, just like any bedding area. They're going to come in and out. So just walk that perimeter, cut those tracks. There's going to be one or two trails, and then just try and sneak in there the best you can and hunt that edge.
Right. And that was the point that I was going to make, is like, regardless of whether it's up or whether it's recently cut, they're going to feed there, whether they're feeding there in the summer, right? Or whether they're feeding there because it just recently got cut sometime in the fall whenever they pull it. But that is your place of like probably like the best intel, because you can cut a track there and you can tell directionally where they're headed and like where they're coming out.
Old
like
Dan Fitzgerald corn crazed whitetails. Put the tripod in the middle of the cornfield.
I don't know that I've ever seen that.
That's a great one. It's an old.
Is it?
Yeah, it's.
I might have seen it like on
Dude,
YouTube
he's in a
like
tripod in his cornfield, and like he got two bucks. We're like battling out on corn. He's just like,
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Right. But yeah, I mean, I think that would be your best bet, and then just start trying to backtrack things.
Big tracks.
Yeah.
No trail cameras is equal. You got to ramp up your woodsmanship skills, which is big tracks is most likely going to get you a bigger body deer. Might not be the horns you're looking for, but it's probably the age class that you're looking for.
Right. Yeah. So it's unfortunately for states like that, it's going to be a saddle up cowboy type of situation. It's going to be, a lot of glassing. And I mean, corn can't hard to glass, right? But like if there's beans around too, like
and there's always
adjacent,
like the inside corners. There's always a cornfield with inside corner or a hedgerow.
Right.
Just start there.
Right. Trying to get a visual, watch where they're coming in and out, start looking at your map and figuring out where the bedding opportunity is. Got to spend some time scouting, probably like not just like this time of year, but like as soon as season opens, like it's almost like you truly have to kind of take the approach that like, you know, so when, you know, doing this show for, dude, I've had this show now for like 7 years, right? Ugh. It's crazy. I know, I'm getting old.
All that money you made, look at you now.
I know, man. Rolling in it. Anyone ever thought that it was like a lucrative idea to start a podcast 7 years in? You know,
it's not.
You sure? You sure about that? It's like, I wish I had that meme when I started this thing. When you listen to like these guys that are just straight killers that, you know, that I've been able to have on the show for years, is they always scout more than they hunt. Mm-hmm. And
that's hard concept for a lot of people.
I was just going to say it's
extremely hard.
And it's now it's like whenever states are starting to ban trail cameras and stuff like that. Now it's like
possibly baiting and all the other stuff. I know they've been talking about that in some other states allegedly. So it's like you got to stay mobile.
Yeah. It's like you're going to have to scout 2 days to hunt one, essentially to make sure to know that you're kind of in an area to give yourself a chance.
Because scouting is hunting.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the thing. It's like the people call it two different things, but it's the only difference is like whether the season is in or not is the difference. You know. So awesome, man. Well, I think that's a wrap, buddy. We've been jamming for about 2 hours. You probably need to pee. You're doing the pee dance over there, I think, a little bit in your chair.
No, I'm good actually.
You're good. Okay.
I just got the one.
That's why I only gave you one water. I'm limiting your liquid intake. I'm limiting your intake. Before you get it out of here, though, buddy, let people know where they can find out more about you, what you got going on, and where they can follow the Zinger.
Zinger with the Zinger.
Zinger with the Zinger.
I'll be here all week.
Bam.
Instagram, YouTube. I got some videos on the phone that I just need to set down and do an intro and outro for it.
Surprised you haven't done it with all your free time.
Yeah. And so because like now, like took precedence of getting up early for work and working out, stretching, and like working on my hip mobility, ankle. So it's like I'm getting up at 3:45. So it's like 9:00. I'm done.
We're literally at Greg's bedtime right now.
Yeah. Greg, is it 9?
No, you're good.
Getting close.
Getting close. Getting close.
Yeah, like 10:00 is late for me these days. It's like, and it's just tough. And trying to like put out stuff, and it's like, man, I look like shit at 9:00 at night, as you can tell.
You look great, dude.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So, but yeah, Instagram, YouTube.
Awesome, man. Well, thanks for coming over, buddy.
Yeah, man.
It's always good hanging out with you, man. We need to do it more often. We need to shoot at some point together and just we need to just make that happen.
Oh, you had to not be a member at the club anymore.
Yeah. I know. I did have a membership at a cool archery club for a while, but
I always kept 3D targets up year round.
Yeah.
That's pretty dope.
Yeah. Maybe I should join that again.
It's a write-off.
Write-off. Yeah. Awesome.
What is that? It's a write-off. You know what that means? It's a write-off.
It's a write-off. You sure about that? All right, folks. Thanks for listening.
Later.
All right, folks, that is a wrap for today's show. I'd like to thank all of you for listening. And if you haven't yet, please head over to iTunes and leave us a 5-star rating, and be sure to subscribe to the podcast. And while you're at it, head over to YouTube and give us a sub there as well. I'd be super appreciative if you would do those couple things for me. And before I shut this thing down, we need to give a big shout out to our partners who continue to help us make this podcast possible. Tethered, Exodus Outdoor Gear, and Genesee Beer. And until next time, we'll see y'all.